A stunning discovery has been made as two whistleblowers have come forth out of the government, putting life and limb at risk, literally, to inform the public that ICE has indeed done some very serious things to undermine the Constitution and that are in complete violation of the Constitution. This message is to conservatives and Republicans who think they support the Constitution while at the same time they support this administration. Immigration officers assert sweeping power to enter homes without a judge's warrant, a memo says. So these two whistleblowers have come forth and said that there's a memo circulating within ICE that says they can go into people's homes without a warrant. All right? Listen to this. Federal immigration officers are asserting sweeping power to forcibly enter people's homes without a judge's warrant, according to an ICE memo obtained by the Associated Press, marking a sharp reversal of longstanding guidance meant to respect constitutional limits on government searches. This is serious, serious stuff. And for all the conservatives who say they love the Constitution, listen to what our government is doing. Don't bury your heads in the sand. Listen to this and just ask yourself, how can you support this and say you support the Constitution? It's not possible. The memo itself has not been widely shared within the agency. This is pretty interesting, too, by the way, according to a whistleblower complaint, but its contents have been used to train new ICE officers who are being deployed into cities and towns to implement the president's immigration crackdown. What we're going to find out in a minute is they're not sharing this with longtime officers because longtime officers know that this is so wrong that they would, a lot of them, rebel against it, but they're sharing it with these new people that they're literally hiring off of Craigslist who have no idea what they're doing. They have no experience at all in law enforcement, no background in it, and they don't know. They just, whatever they're told, they're like, oh, okay, that's cool. That's cool. New ICE hires and those still in training are being told to follow the memo's guidance instead of written training materials that actually contradict the memo, according to the whistleblower disclosure. These this memo that's been put out that says they don't have to get a judge's warrant, or a warrant from an independent judge, means outside of the agency, because that's what the Constitution demands. You have to have oversight from an independent body outside of the police or law enforcement agency that wants the warrant to look over their shoulders and make sure all is okay, right? So, what this memo says is that people within ICE can sign a warrant, all right? But they're not showing this to longtime law enforcement officials that have worked for the agency for a long time. They're only showing it to new hires because they don't know any better. This is so sinister and such evil stuff going on in our government, such unconstitutional stuff going on. Now, this is an actual copy of the whistleblower complaint, and I'm going to read a couple of parts, a couple of pieces of it to you, and you'll get the point. You'll get the point. Any fair-minded, objective person will get the point. Let me see if I can. Oh, no, I can't expand it. I was going to try to enlarge it a little bit, but it won't work. Anyway, I'll leave a link to this in the description below. Okay. So it says here, this is the whistleblower complaint that was sent in. Whistleblower Aid, which is an organization, represents two anonymous United States government officials disclosing a secretive and seemingly unconstitutional policy directive. The policy directive authorizes ICE agents to enter homes, get this, to enter homes and residences without consent in order to conduct arrest and removals without a warrant issued by a federal judge. Okay. Note, they're not saying it's without a warrant totally, but they're saying it's without a warrant issued by a federal judge because in a minute you'll see they're going to issue the warrant themselves. How convenient, right? By memorandum dated May 12th, 2025, Acting ICE Director Todd Lyons authorizes ICE agents to forcibly enter into certain people's homes without a judicial warrant, consent, or an emergency. While addressed to all ICE personnel, in practice, the May 12th memo has not been formally distributed to all personnel. Instead, the May 12th memo has been provided to select DHS officials only, who are then directed to verbally brief the new policy for action. So it's given to select supervisors who they, I guess, know are on board with all of this, and then they're told to verbally brief this to the men under them. So there's no written uh, uh, record of it. There's no written trail. Those supervisors then show the memo to some employees, like our clients, the two whistleblowers, and direct them to read the memo and to return it to the supervisor. They don't want a trail. They don't want a paper trail. A Form I-205, which DHS has called a warrant of removal slash deportation, is drafted and signed by an ICE official. Based upon final, get that, it's drafted and signed by an ICE official. This is the warrant of removal, okay? It's drafted by and signed by an ICE official, an ICE employee, not a judge who's outside the agency, not a judge who can provide oversight. It's really crazy stuff. Based upon the final administrative order of deportation typically issued by an immigration judge, the purpose of Form I-205 is to authorize ICE agents to detain and remove these individuals. These arrests have always been limited to public places because Form I-205 has not been considered a warrant issued by, get this, listen, by a neutral and detached magistrate, like a federal judge. Only a warrant issued by a neutral and detached magistrate, such as a judicial warrant, would authorize ICE agents to enter or search non public areas, such as an alien's residence. So basically, what ICE is doing, what these criminals who run this organization now are doing, is they're taking the form that is for public arrest and saying now you can use that for private arrest. It means you can do this on private property and you can go into people's homes. And they're teaching this to new hires who have no idea what they're doing, who've never worked in law enforcement before, and who are basic thugs. It appears that the acting ICE director has authorized the very conduct that DHS in 2025 legal training materials, citing Supreme Court precedent, has called the chief evil against which the wording of the Fourth Amendment is directed: physical entry of the home without consent or a proper warrant. This is all bad stuff. Based upon information and belief, newly hired ICE agents, many of whom do not have a law enforcement background, are now being directed to rely solely on Form I-205 to enter a home without consent to conduct arrest. In fact, our client at DHS understands that instructors at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center are directed to verbally train all new ICE agents to follow this policy while disregarding written course material instructing the opposite. Wow. So, what they have in writing that's publicly distributed instructs the exact opposite of this. It says you can't go into people's homes without a judicial warrant, without a warrant signed by an actual judge outside of ICE. Okay? Potentially, scores of ICE agents will be emboldened to unlawfully enter private residences, which include the private residences of, obviously, and of course, U.S. citizens. Because we know they're not stopping at U.S. citizens anymore, are they? They're not. Well, just a historical refresher, the Declaration of Independence explicitly condemns practices like warrantless searches. In fact, it's one of the biggest beefs the early Americans had with Great Britain's rule. But that was more than 250 years ago now. And since we've lived without that practice for that long, we have no memory of it at all. We don't even know why all of our laws that insist on things like warrants and reading suspects their rights are so vital. All those little niceties that get in the way of a lot of you I know, and have been one of these people, view those things as impediments to stopping criminals. They make it harder. They make it harder to stop criminals, and they do. And every American has been frustrated by these things. But we don't want to get rid of them. If we had lived back in the early days of America, while it was still under Britain and King George, or if we were smart enough to learn from history without having to have lived back then, we would know that these things are hugely important And it's well worth whatever headache it gives us in convicting criminals. It's well worth the trouble because of the fact that it protects all of us from wrongful prosecution. And without these protections, all of us are subject to wrongful prosecution by a tyrant like King George or like King Don, who just willy nilly, whatever they're feeling that day, may send their Department of Justice out to arrest you because they found out you posted something on Facebook they don't like. You know, can happen. And it's happened. This president has already done these things. He's already done them. So don't sit there and say, oh, no, that's all speculation. He would never do that. He's done it already. If we did it any other way, if we overlooked these things or threw them out, i- things would be much, much worse for the American people. And just as a reminder, I feel like these MAGA people are so ungrateful or so forgetful. They think by overturning these things and saying, "Oh, that we don't need to follow those niceties of the law. We need to stop the criminals. These criminals are a real danger, and they're out on the streets killing people, and that we don't have time to read them their rights, and we don't have time to get a warrant from a judge. Those things, we don't have time for that." Listen, we've lived this way for 250 years in this country almost that long under this Constitution. And we've had these laws in place, we've had these protections in place for that long. And during that time, have we not become the greatest nation on earth? The wealthiest nation on earth, the most powerful nation on earth in the history of humanity. And now that we're sliding into this direction, we're also losing a lot of these things that we've gained over these years, like our power and our wealth and our ability to lead the world. It's all slipping away. As we start to violate more and more of the Constitution, it's all slipping away. The Declaration of Independence gives a long list of grievances against King George, the British tyrant who ruled over America, that directly relate to unlawful intrusion into homes. Here's a quote. He has sent here, King George has sent here to the colonies. This is in the Declaration. He has sent here swarms of officers to harass our people. Just turn on the news any day. And that's exactly what ICE is doing. They first said it would be against the worst of the illegal immigrants, undocumented people here. Then it turned out to be among just anybody who's undocumented, whether they committed a crime or not. Then it has turned out to be against even immigrants who are documented and here completely legally and haven't committed a crime. And many American citizens have been caught up in this mess as well. All right. Another quote from the Declaration for protecting it. Listen to this. This is so pertinent to today. This relates. It's like it could have been written today, although it's in Old English. I'll translate it a little bit. It says, for protecting them by a mock trial from punishment for any murders which they should commit. All right. For protecting them, the Declaration is complaining about King George for protecting them, these officers who are harassing Americans. He protects them with a mock trial from any punishment for any murders which they should commit. In other words, if the officer committed a murder, they would stand a mock trial where the outcome would be predetermined in their favor. In other words, the British tyrant, King George, gave them absolute immunity for murder. That's exactly what J.D. Vance claimed the other day that ICE officers have now when they commit murder, as they did in Minneapolis. He says, and Trump says, they have absolute immunity. Come on, start connecting the dots here. The Declaration condemns these abuses and conditions that arose out of warrantless searches, and the Constitution and the Bill of Rights formally outlaw them. The Fourth Amendment says the right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, even if they are an immigrant or a foreigner from another country. It shall not be violated. That's sacrosanct. That's bedrock to our system of government. And here you have the private army of the president you support, you MAGA people support, violating this each and every day, and you're turning a blind eye to it, and you're making excuses and justifications, and you're defending it. If you can't see that you're cheering on these great violations of our Constitution that you used to say you loved, then only your ignorance of the Constitution and its history could explain that. Only your ignorance can explain why you don't understand that what you're supporting today is the same thing the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence condemn. You can no longer claim to be the ones who support the Constitution. And guess what? That claim belongs to the Democrats now. It's unbelievable, but conservatives can look to Democrats now as the ones who uphold the Constitution and respect it and honor it and are trying to bring it back and trying to keep it from being destroyed by the administration you conservatives are supporting. All right. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest. I appreciate you listening. If you liked anything you heard, I'd appreciate a like or a subscribe. That would be great. And I will talk to you soon. Okay. Take care.